Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Can you all see and hear me? Hiya, Mudhorse from North Somerset. Who's in North Somerset? Taffy Pat, Jim, Music, Bri54, Sue Ellen. Let's have a look who else is coming out in there. Minnie Mouse. Timbuktu, Sue Ellen, Jim Music, Sapper69. That sounds rude, that, doesn't it? But we will have to get into this in a couple of minutes. Good evening to everyone. So just to let everyone, don't forget, we've got the Mablethorpe. No doubt I've got some other ones coming up. Mablethorpe on the 5th, 6th and 7th of June. But our two events are on the 6th and 7th, which is a Saturday and a Sunday. Mablethorpe is lovely. Paddy's gaff there, the Jones Complex, is superb. And we're going to have a proper chat about some few things in there, and we'll be covering off a lot of different things. So, and then we'll have interactions with different things. But hopefully, we need hundreds of people to get there. I'm also going to be doing an event in Durham, a seminar in Durham, and a lovely lady has contacted us. She's also doing, as far as I'm aware, a law degree, and she wants us to get up there and show people what the English Constitution is. But the Durham one is going to be very special. One, because I love Durham. Really beautiful place. It's a bit like Devon. But an event or one of their inhabitants of a few hundred years ago was, again, if I've got his book on here, but I have got the book somewhere. It's probably in that lot over there. Granville Sharp. Granville Sharp was a working class man from Durham. The left hate it when I call him a working class man, and the reason is because they say his dad was the deacon, archdeacon of or a deacon of the Church of England. He's not working class, right? So, first of all, his family didn't have the money to put him through university education. He became a tradesman, namely a tailor, and he was cutting material in London. His brothers were in different areas and different things, but basically that they had gone to university, but they supported him, all right, and he also worked. So if you ain't got a degree and you're a tradesman, you're working class. It doesn't matter what the fuck your dad is, right? It's about you as an individual, and it's the reverse of that. I hear quite a bit people say to me, I'm working class and they're a barrister, or I'm working class and they're a teacher, or I'm working class, David Starkey, who's a professor of history, right? That none of those professions I've just read out to you, they are professions. They're not working class. And it's them people that have always shit on us in the past. I am going to try and keep my language down because for particular reasons. But I want everyone to hit the like button. I know it's Friday night and it's the 1st of May. It's officially May Day. It's a bank holiday Monday, isn't it? It means I've got to find something to do Monday. I'll be live Monday night. I'm always live, right? I'll try and even be live on Christmas Day. Yeah, no. So Holly England, I agree. Fuck a degree. I'm English. I'm working class. Let me see if I can pin that comment because that. Listen, and the thing that gets me again, County Durham and Durham, Granville Sharp. He literally went up against the British establishment. He literally went up against the judges, the lawyers, many of whom were Scottish, right, that had and operated slaves. So that's why Durham's going to be quite fascinating, because it's nice to tell that story there. And I don't know, I mean, I don't come from Durham, but I doubt if they'll tell you the full history and where you can get the information from to find out. And bearing in mind, Granville Sharp is actually buried, in effect, where I was born. He's got a big monument in a church to him. No one knows who he is. And I think that's pretty naughty, really. Considering the history of England, it literally, we were the people. It was the shot heard around the world when the English said you can't be a slave in England. You can be a lot of things in England, but you can't be a slave. So just to make sure. So if our friend Phil Lavelle is up there, if you can give us any assistance, anyone who comes from Durham, if you can give us any assistance with advertising it and promoting it locally, and again, emphasise English Constitution, the English, and emphasise that it was the English that stopped slavery and a man from County Durham that did it, right? So I will be going through that history, brushing back up on it so I can tell some fascinating stories. When I told the story at Southend, there were people in the crowd actually crying when I said what these slavers had done to people. There was a load of anti-racists in the background, and the police went and told them to foxtrot Oscar or we'll arrest you. They said, these people are not racist. They are telling a historic event, and there was a black guy there that come up to me, and he said, I'm an actor. And what you've just said to me has fascinated me. Where can I get this information? And would you assist if we wanted to do a play in London about this? And I said, yeah, of course I'll assist you. I said, but all I'm trying to tell people is we're not the bad guys. We're the good guys. We always have been. And if I told the full story about what happened in the USA, you will start to realise that the southern states were not the bad guys. They found a way of releasing slaves because they didn't want them. They didn't want them, right? They was literally being forced upon them. And what they said was, because these slaves, let me just make sure everyone understands. You understands that the slaves used to get the weekend off, and if they worked the weekend, right, they got paid. And what they did in Virginia, I believe it was, and there was another state they did it as well. They devised a way: if you work weekends, you can save up 4 weekends, bought your freedom, right? Now that may sound harsh to some people, but it wasn't harsh at all. What they needed was people, one, that wanted to work, two, that had a skill set that could help the community. If they just released the slaves would have died and starved. And many of them who got back to England, it was the working class in London that fed them, right? Because they couldn't do anything. There's a whole story about that. They're called the Blackbirds of St Giles. And again, it was a working class. Like the people with money, I mean, they was hanging us. If you imagine, if I could bring up some of the ancient court cases from the Old Bailey, where 4-year-old children, white working class children, were being hanged for stealing a bread roll because they was hungry, right? And then they brought in transportation because they felt that it was more humane, depending when you got sent. But one thing I will tell you, I've read this out on the show before. I actually read out a massive article from Hansard, right? So the official record of Parliament, where a parliamentarian actually said, and this is back in the 1700s, right, where he actually told Parliament that white working class children were treated far worse than slaves, right? And if you heard the stories of what they did to us, and the reason why slaves were treated better, black slaves were treated better, or any slave, but particularly black slaves, were treated better than white working class children, is because the white working class had no value, right? If you was indentured to a master, and I'll give you a good example of a little boy, I think he was 3, 4, that was stuck up a red hot chimney, right? The fire would, and they had a blockage in it, and the master put him up the chimney. Imagine going up that tight little space of a chimney, and the kid died up the chimney, boiling hot. He was in pain and screaming, and then whoever owned the house and the master had to go and get like a master craftsman to come and smash the chimney out to retrieve the body, right? That's how bad it was on us. They didn't do that with black people. White working class kids in the mills, when the mill's machinery had seized, or there was something wrong with it, right? Don't forget the steam engines are in the background and the machine's just sitting there and it's not doing anything. They used to put our kids in that machinery to take out whatever was blocking it, and then the machine would start, right? Kids, young kids, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, lost limbs. Imagine the agony that they was in. But let me just make sure I tell you this. They didn't do that with black slaves, because the people who had purchased them, right? It's really important people understand this. They add value. It's a bit like buying a car or a van, and you look after it because it's helping you, go through your life and earn a pound note. So you look after it. Whereas if you got something, this is why I always say to people, if you get something for nothing, you don't value it, right? That's why we're doing seminars on creating this book, so people will value what they're being taught. A bit like a private education, it is more valued because people paid for it, and you get a much better education, and there is no better education than self-education, because it's your own passion, it's your own thoughts, you want to do it, right? So there's a few things I wanted to. So Durham's going to be a lot about that. Hopefully, we'll have enough time now. And again, the lady who's creating this is doing a law degree, and she's actually said I think she got 85% or 95% pass mark on an essay, and she said the reason why she got, because she wrote out all this law that she had learned from me, and she'd done it on the British Nationality Act. And she got a really, really great pass mark, which I thought was fantastic. But a lot of lawyers and people doing law degrees come along to the seminars. They're not meant to be. When I say not meant to be, they're not. Whilst I'll give you all the law and what you can research, and people make notes on it and go away and search it. It's a bit like the Hamlin Lectures. The Hamlin Lectures are delivered to lay people, so it's easy to understand. If you really want to get technical with a law, I can do that, right? But you have to know who your audience is, and if they're lay people, it is the higher level. These are your rights. This is the Constitution. This is in this is codified, right? And that's what we're actually doing. So getting on to the main subject tonight, don't forget, hit the like button. Don't forget, and I'm grateful for the people who have been ordering ivermectin. Let me just put this up there. Don't forget, if you want ivermectin, I've got some here. Ivermectin, 6 strips, minimum order, no maximum, £15 each. So strip, and in a strip there is 10 ivermectins, right? Email graham.moore@protonmail.com and put in the subject line ivermectin. Many people who've done it absolutely perfect. Then state how many strips required, full name and address and postcode, right? You have the right to self-defense by any means, and this is and should be in every single home in this country as a self-defense and it is completely safe, right? It's a molecule, not a drug. And again, the ones I've got here, some of them are 12 milligrams, but most of them are 20 milligrams. So, and again, they're well in date, so you can store them in there. I don't worry about the dates, by the way. I've got some here that are out of date. I'll just take them anyway. They don't really, it doesn't really matter. So just making sure. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, right? So don't forget why I do this. First of all, it's not about me, right? I want everyone to understand that in a big way. Anyone who's met me knows I'm not. Listen, I don't want to be a multimillionaire. I don't want to be a billionaire. I prefer in my life if I didn't get involved with politics, but because people haven't been involved with politics, look what they've done to us, right? So it's not about me, it's about England. And it's not just about our ancestors and the current situation, it's about our future generations. A lot of people say it's my grandchildren, my great-great-grandchildren or whatever. We've got to leave behind what our ancestors left for us. And in our current situation, we're not doing that. So it's about waking people up and saying, listen, this is about England, right? There was a... let's see if I've got it on here, because I do want to show you it. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not sure if I've got it on here or not. I'll have to probably go and have a look for it and bring it up, right? But I'll do it now. Let's see where it's come up to. Hopefully it's on there. There it is, right? This was sent out today, right? So remember who you are. And the reason I'm putting this out there, because it was sent out and a Scot sent a message. The only person to send a negative message about this was a Scot, right? Who said, I'm Scottish. Right? Oh, come on. I've got to try and make this a lot bigger. Right. I can't see my little thing on there. Right, I'm going to show you this, right? See if you can get this pushed out as much as you can, right? Now, this is just Mr. and Mrs. English on YouTube, right? Published it 9 hours ago. We've had one negative comment from a Scot who said, keep that rubbish off of my timeline, right? I'm Scottish. And then I'm going to get on to the main subject. But let me put this up there and then I'll show you what's going on, right? So here it is. So there is what I've just sent you. I'm going to put it up on the screen and I'm going to play it for you. Here we go. Have a listen to this. In perpetuity, the realm stands free. The rights of England forever. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. From county halls to parish ground, the voice of England echoes round. Freehold land and honest trade, rights that never fade away. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Raise our children, keep them safe. Habeas corpus holds the place. Silence kept, the jury's strong. Ancient freedoms all night long. No tyrant's hand, no secret power, no love suspended for an hour. Our liberties, we guard them tight. England's realm stands
who you are. Remember who you are. 3 times forever, 3 times forever, 3 times forever. We stand, rights of the realm, in perpetuity. Rights of the realm, our ancient unity. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. No communist or fascist rise to hold authority or disguise. The freedom's written in our core. England's rights forevermore. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. The realm stands, the rights stand, the people stand. And when convention parliament met, they set these safeguards firm and set to keep the realm secure and free, a shield for England's liberty. Parliament should be called to keep us strong, to redress the wrongs, amend the wrong. Courts of peril cast aside, truth and justice are our guide. 3 times forever, in perpetuity, in perpetuity, in perpetuity. 3 times forever, 3 times forever, 3 times forever. We stand. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Rights of the realm, let the baseline run. Rights of the realm for everyone. Forever, forever, forever. The realm stands, the rights stand, the people stand. Forever, 3 times forever. Remember who you are. Remember who you are.
And that one was specially made for Dino Bane, Andy the Gabby Cabby, and to all of our followers. That's on Mr. and Mrs. English on YouTube, and I'll guarantee you they will suppress and oppress that all day long. But that really is, that's how you communicate with younger people now, right? So if you went back to 300 years ago, 400 years ago, they didn't have the methods of communication that we've got now. But people will remember 3 times forever, in perpetuity. Where does it come from? It's English, right? And people really do need to punt that out and push it out. Try and send it. Send that to the young minds of Restore and see what they think of it, right? Because that is a great tune, whatever's said, and it's educational because they will remember it, right? So again, I'm gonna now turn to another, and I did want to make sure everyone understands this. Let me have a look on there. I will try and have that as a lead-in when I set this up all properly. Let me go and and just to let you know, there was one negative comment on Twitter about that from a Scottish MC. So someone who does the raves, he's an MC and all that, and he said, "I'm Scottish," put a Scottish flag and said, "Keep this off my timeline," right? Just to make sure everyone's aware of this. Most of the people that go to them events are English, right? and maybe people should just stop going to his events, because he actually doesn't like the English, but he's taking your money, right? Which takes me and leads me into the next element of this. I just want to make sure everyone does understand where this comes from. Let's see if I can bring it straight up on your screen. Touch wood, I should be able to bring it up on your screen. That one's gone off already. Let's see if this one's up there. There's plenty going on. Let me have a look. This was the master investor that I put out some time ago. I'm going to go out and put this out again. So again, I'm going to put this out there. People need to understand who and what Nigel Farage is. He cannot be trusted. One of the reasons UKIP was set up was to stop the English rising. If you ask someone like Gerard Batten was and is an English nationalist. Why he ever got involved with Tommy Robinson, I'll never know. But people need to. He sounds like a Marxist Scott Graham. Yeah, he probably is. So all I'm doing is I'm going to show you this on the screen, put it up, and you can listen. This is Nigel Farage talking to. Let me get back over there. Talking to Jim Mellon, who is a multi-billionaire financier, right? And I just want you to listen what he says here about Scotland.
Determination of what happens in this sort of
numerically, the SNP are taking seats straight off Labour. So if you like, it's the centre-left. The fact the SNP are winning seats off Labour does not add to the number of seats that are won by the centre-left in the British Parliament next time round. It is possible that Labour and the SNP could have a majority in the next Parliament, but I think it's very unlikely.
So you think Cameron's going to get back in one?
Well, I also think the nearer the election comes, the worse the Scottish problem is for Miliband.
Scottish problem, right? Now, bear in mind, he's just gone up to Scotland, gone into Glasgow, shaking their hands, and he's now promised the Scots another referendum, right? So they placate. By the way, people like Reform wouldn't get in any form of power, nor would the Conservative and Union Party, nor would the Labour Party, nor would the Lib Dems, if it wasn't for the socialists in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And I'm not talking about the Northern Irish I'm talking about, or even the Scots that I'm talking about, that are with me 100%. Remember, the Scots fought with us during the Civil War and with Cromwell, right? So people need to understand this, but I'm going to play it again.
Because there is a growing feeling in the north of England particularly. Why does all this money get sent over our heads over Hadrian's Wall? Expenditure per capita much higher in Scotland than it is in England. And how is it that we still don't have an English voice in an English Parliament? And I think...
Right, so we have no English voice in the English Parliament. The Parliament is British. There are no English voices for us in that Parliament, right? And what they're trying to do is oppress and suppress the English while placating the Scots, the Welsh and the Irish and the nationalists, right? So Sinn Féin and the IRA are communists. That's why Jeremy Corbyn supported them. That's why Gaddafi supported them, because they are communist by nature, right? And all communists seek to destroy England, right? So all I'm doing is showing you that. And then what I'm going to do is go back to this other one, because I need to show you what it is. There is another one up there. Let me see if I can find it. Because he actually says at another... let me see if Farage and Jim Mellon, or Farage Scotland. I think I'll put in that one. And here he is. Right, I'm going to bring this up, and bearing in mind, this is how treasonous this man is, right? He created UKIP to destroy the English movement, right? That is why I have in the past been so worried about Rupert Lowe and the people advising him. There is a massive pent up demand for England to have their own national referendum. We ain't had one yet. Scotland's had 3 and on its way to its 4th. Wales has had 2, I believe, and so is Northern Ireland. What I'm talking about is national referendums, right? England has never, because it's a British Parliament, we have no voice. I'm just going to make sure everyone understands this, right? So it's on the screen now. This is Nigel Farage speaking in Scotland, going back a few years, but listen to this.
English taxpayers are a bit cheesed off with so much of their money going over Hadrian's Wall, giving people no prescription charges and no university tuition, whilst in England they're charged.
Notice who's laughing.
So there needs to be a rebalancing, and in the future, Scotland should receive less money per capita than it currently does. That would be fair. English taxpayers are a bit cheesed off with so much of their money.
So notice how these treasonous British politicians only reference England and start to fire up the English, right? That's what I'm worried about. I don't think Rupert Lowe is that person. He's not a politician. He's a businessman, right? There is a very serious problem with Scotland. It's not the Scottish people. It's their jurisdiction is Roman law. It is a cancer inside that British Parliament. It's not for us to tell them to change their jurisdiction and their way of government and rule, but it is for us to stick a border up and say we don't want anything to do with it, right? The way you protect England, and there's a law book that I've got here somewhere by Sir William Howe that was written in the late 1700s. It was published posthumously in It was written in the late 1600s and published posthumously in the 1700s, and he actually talks about the 2 types of governance. One is Roman law, and one is the English common law, and then he actually goes into detail and says that any Roman law system has never survived. The ones that have survived the longest, so a monarchy in England, for example, 1100 years, because it is a common law jurisdiction. One of our greatest kings was King Henry V. He was known as the Warrior King. And what was noted in history about him was he died when he was 35, but he was in his first battle when he was 16, right? He was known as the Warrior King, and one of the things that he did was it was noted that he then started to change the way the people saw the monarchy. He wanted the people to understand that they and the king were the protectors of the realm, right? And the common law. And he installed in the English and started pushing forward. Many of these laws are still in place, right? Where it's about England as a nation, as a people, right? And people don't realise how important he is, because he was the one who really created how we see England today, right? So again, people need to understand. I am into a brotherhood of nations, but there needs to be a separation. And the people who are being destroyed are literally, and I do mean literally, the English, right? And there's another one I've got there where I actually put it out on another video in 2023, and someone sent it out, and I re-put it out there, so people are looking and learning about what's going on, especially regionalisation. Regionalisation, they changed the name from regionalisation to devolution. They did that for the same reason they changed in the European Union, putting out to constituent nations the European Union constitution, because everyone went, we're not having that, and then they renamed it. They kept everything by I think one line, and called it the Maastricht Treaty.
English taxpayers are a bit cheesed off with so much of their money going over Hadrian's Wall, giving people no prescription charges and no university tuition, whilst in England they're charged. So there needs to be a rebalancing, and in the future, Scotland should receive less money per capita than it currently does. That would be fair.
Right. So all I'm saying to you is, and I'm going to take you to something else now. It's really important that people understand this. I hope that someone in Reform does actually watch this and understands I'm not being negative to the Scots or the Welsh or the Irish. And in fact, the Northern Irish, and especially the Loyalists, they're more English than the English. And people need to understand they've still got the full right to self-defence and carry a concealed firearm, right? There's a lot I could say about that, but I want people to understand that. So I'm not having a go at the Scots. But then you've got him again. So this is April this week, an absolute state of night. Goes to Aberdeen. Right. So what I'm going to do is show you this, and then I'm going to show you something else, because I think it's quite important that people get this in a big way. Right. Here it is.
And frankly, what has been so depressing about Scotland's independence from the United Kingdom in the sense of devolution is, has everything since 97 made Scotland happier, made Scotland richer, made it more successful? And yet what you see from Sarwar, from all of them, Swinney, is the same tired old formula. What they are offering the Scottish electorate is more of the same in the next few years.
And England has never been offered a referendum, right? So remember that. And what I'm going to do is now take you to an extremely important element, if I can find it. I think it's up there. There it is, right? Now this, anyone can go and get this, and anyone can make a meme of it and understand it, right? And understand that what Farage is doing, again, is stitching up the English. Because we've got, so there used to be something called English votes for English laws, and it was termed as eval, right? Very close to evil. These people know exactly how they're making these terms, and it was Boris Johnson that finally took that off the table and said, no, the English have no voice in a British Parliament, right? So this has always been to destroy England. But what you'll see from the 2011 ethnicity and national identity in England and Wales, right? We focus on the increasing ethnic diversity within England and Wales, whilst the majority of the population gave their ethnic group as white in the 2011 census. Results from the past 20 years show a decrease, of falling from 94% in 1991 to down to 86% in 2011. London was found to be the most ethnically diverse area. What does that mean? White flight, right? And that's why you're finding Londoners, and there's key points in this. If anyone wants to read through this, you do yourself a favour, especially if you're in Restore, to understand this completely, right? And again, you start to see why they're destroying certain areas and attacking certain areas. Like you've got the northeast is near ethnic English regions in Wales, and then it shows you how high the white areas are, right? But this is the one that you really need to understand, right? It is national identity, and I'm going to bring it up and put it up on the screen, hopefully. Why ain't that working? There you go. Let's pull it over to that side, right? So this is paragraph 7. It's really important because people don't understand what they did and why they did it. Nationality identity in England and Wales. The 2011 census introduced a question on national identity for the first time. They've never done it before. This was due to an increased interest in national consciousness and demand from people to acknowledge their national identity. This is so important that Restore understands this, right? They shouldn't be coerced by the British media, and especially the BBC and every other type of media, right? National identity is multi-dimensional. So the 2011 census respondents were allowed to tick more than one national identity. 91% of the population identified with at least one UK national identity: English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, and British, right? Remember, British is last. English identity, either on its own or combined with other identities, was the most common identity respondents chose to associate with. At 37.6 million people, 67%. English as a sole identity, not combined with any other identity. In other words, standing up and saying, I am English, right? Was chosen by 32.4 million people, 57%, nearly 58%. British identity, either on its own or combined with other identities, was a common identity chosen by 16.3 million people. More than half of that are foreigners, right? 29%. 10 million or 10.7 million people, 19% associated themselves with British only identity. Now, that group of people, British only national identity, the 19%, the 10 million people, you can guarantee 3/4 of that are foreigners, right? They have no association with England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. It's really important that people understand this. So the audience they're placating are foreigners. Welsh identity, either on its own or combined with other identities, was chosen by 2.4 million people, 4.3%. 2 million people, 33.7%, associating themselves with a Welsh-only identity. Now, the Scots ain't really on here majorly because it is a census for England and Wales. But a small percentage of people in England and Wales associated themselves with Scottish or Northern Irish identity, 1%. And 0.3% respectively. That's why you should Restore should not be interested in what the Scots think or what the Northern Irish think. And the Northern Irish, I just want to make sure we're clear on this. I believe that they should be fully independent and come under as a protector of the English, right? They will thrive, right? And they are a common law jurisdiction, right? Respectively, 5 million said they had a national identity which was classed as other, right? So this is the geographic distribution for national identity, right? Now, if you can see England and Wales, and obviously there you've got English 67, right? Welsh is like 4%, right? There is a absolutely pent up. People want to take England back. No one's had the bottle to stand up and say it so far. But here is England, and then we're going to go to the northeast. Now look at the northeast. 81%, right? There's no Welsh living there. British 26, most of them are foreigners. All other 4, right? And then you've got the northwest at 76%. Now, if you go up to the edges into Cumbria, they are massively English patriots, right? And again, if you look at this, Yorkshire and Humber, East Midlands, and it starts to come down the closer you get, literally, to London. So there's London, 44%. 38% believe they're British. Now, majority of them are foreigners, right? The English have virtually disappeared from London, right? Then you've got the southeast at 73%, and then you've got the southwest, where I am, which is 76%, right? Now go back to this other one, which is this one, the northeast. So as you go up the country to the northeast, you've got County Durham, you've got Northumberland, you've got that whole group of people, Sunderland, which has been smothered. It literally, right? Now, what they did was they used this information that's on the screen now from the ONS, and what they did was in 2019 they had planned, and the reason I know this is because I work for a company called Mears Group, right? And what they did was they was already planning and already awarded contracts to Mears and others, Clear Springs, Serco, and there was another one that they awarded 4 billion tax money, £4 billion as a rolling contract to go to these areas with the highest English-only national identity and flood them areas with asylum seekers that they give British passports to, right? And that's why people are seeing this influx of these asylum seekers. Now, all of this can go and you can go and look it up on the internet. It's up on the website. It's on the government's websites. And I was saying to people, they've used the information from this to target areas with the highest, and now they're going to target Devon. Now they're going to target Cumbria. Now they're going to target Norfolk. Now they're going to target Suffolk. Now they're going to target even more the northeast of England, right? So we need to understand, when I say northeast, I'm talking about the actual shires and counties, even though I don't like talking about counties, that's just life. And what they did was they used that money. I know a project manager who had paid for, even then in 2019, a £300,000 house. He started off as a forklift driver for this company. He got a job with Mears, and he was a good organiser. He basically he didn't care as long as he was being paid. And then he had no qualifications whatsoever, unlike me, Prince 2 practitioner, one of the hardest exams you can pass at extremely high level. I was like well in excess of 90%, right? And yet people like him, why? Because he's a communist, is the simple reason. And yet he is now one of the most highly pensioned people out there. He lives in Kent, lives in a beautiful house, all paid for, all from your tax money, because he betrayed the people of Kent. He betrayed the people of the southeast of England. And he was one of the people, don't forget, I actually knew the guy. So I was like listening to this and thinking, that's fucking treason. You could have paid me £1 million a year and I would have told them of Foxtrot Oscar, you are not doing that to my country, right? And then obviously I started to put this stuff out and they did not like it at all. Anyone who's watched me for years will remember when I used to do my morning travel into work and I'd be in the traffic and people used to bid me even in the London traffic and say it's Daddy Dragon driving to work, right? Because they see me coming past them live and they go beep beep and wave out the window, right? And I'd turn up on these sites, etc. And one of the things that people didn't realise was what they was doing. A lot of the Mears sites have got people on there called gangmasters. Gangmasters are illegal in England and Wales. And what that means is you get a foreigner, basically they're professional criminals and nasty people, and they run they run the workforce, their foreign workforce, right? Lots of their guys was coming up and talking to me. I was a site manager and saying we're not being paid, right? And then I'm talking to our project manager and saying, listen, these guys are not being paid, right? Now, regardless of them being foreign, you get an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. They was grafters, even though they didn't know what the fuck they was doing, right? Nowhere near the quality of the English, right? And the people taking the pound note were the gangmasters and the professional organised criminals that were associated in Romania, Bulgaria. I was on another site. There was a lot of Bulgarians sitting outside. This is not that long ago. I got thrown off a site because I was English, right? And the site was being run by a Polish site manager who took on his brother-in-law, who was Romanian, there were queues of vans sitting up the road by this site where the Bulgarians used to sleep in the vans. They were painting and decorators. They used to sleep in the vans and then come and work, right? What people don't know is I got thrown off that site. Not because I was nasty or anything. I just said there's a serious safety issue here. I was a site I was the crane supervisor, right? Ticketed and all that. So there's things I want to tell you that you need to understand, which is why I keep pushing forward with the English, because we're going to get slaughtered out there. His brother-in-law, who's a senior signal, took a ton of bricks up on a crane. Anyone who's worked on a building site will know what I'm talking about. And then he's taking them bricks over at the workforce, right? He then hit the scaffolding and the whole ton of bricks dropped, right? And I was screaming into my radio to the crane driver, stop, all stop, right? And he kept going because he was listening on another channel, right? Not the emergency channel, to the Romanian, and them two couldn't talk to each other in fucking English, right? The brother-in-law of the site manager didn't know any of the signals, right? All stop. Didn't know any of the signals. Where did he get his ticket from, right? Because it cost me £3,000, right, to get a ticket. Where did he get his ticket from? Romania. Well, you can go and buy a ticket that is valid in this country for a tenner, £10, right? And then come to this country and they say you're qualified, right? That's how bad it is out there. But the major point to tell everyone listening to this, I'm not lazy, right? I love working. If my health is superb for the rest of my, I would work until I was 90 years old. And if I'm doing it for England, even better, right? But I want you all to understand something. Those Bulgarians who were sitting in their vans, now listen to this, under the Posted Workers Directive, which is still a directive in law in this country because they never abolished, made void the European Communities Act of 1972. Instead, they repealed it and kept loads of it in there. Those Bulgarians were not being taxed the same as me. They were sleeping in their vans, and guess what? They was being taxed 10% of their salary, and that 10% was being sent back to Bulgaria, to the Bulgarian government. So we got none of it. So where the British are all saying, yeah, look at these, they're giving us money, they're giving us tax money, fuck off, right? And that was called the Posted Workers Directive, that as far as I know is still law today, right? So certain individuals. Now, if you imagine that you can lower the salaries to these people slightly, even by 10%, then they're going to work and keep in the back of their vans, right? Go back to Keir Hardie and what he said about the Lithuanians when they was all living in a single house and a woman had come in and cooked for them and they all stink of garlic. That's what Keir Hardie, the first Labour MP, said about immigrants into Scotland, right? And he said that that Scotland should be kept for the Scotland and nobody else, and the Scots should be kept there and not allowed to leave, right? But my point to everyone is that that's what I'm telling you, right? So all of a sudden, someone like me, they will never allow someone like me to be an MP, right? Because I'd get up there and tell them what's actually going on, right? And all them people are saying, no, it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Yes, it does. And that means that the wage price for us gets forced down because these people are working, get automatically 22% in front of you as a normal working man. Then you've got to pay all your overheads for living in this country, right? When they're just keeping in their vans. And by the way, the Posted Workers Directive lasts for 2 years. What they do is they go home after 18 months, stay at home for a month, and then come back, and then the 2-year period starts again. So they're in a perpetual motion of only paying 10% tax. That's exactly what goes on. And then you've got the other group of people, which are the gangmasters that are securing the contracts, right? And we're all getting massive bungs. I mean, when I say massive, I know project managers for Mears that have bought £1 million villas in Spain. One of the guys has got a his and hers brand spanking new Range Rovers. Listen, I'm not jealous, right? I've had all that, right? But when you're betraying our country, that's when it becomes. I have to say, That's disgusting, right? And just to make sure everyone understands this, right, I reported all this to the Serious Fraud Office, right? I reported all of this to the Serious Fraud Office. They was in communication with me. They know what Mia's group are doing. They know that they're taking that money. They know that all of this money is coming in from taxation and being divided up into organised crime, right? They know that. But people like Rupert Lowe and Charlie Downs and these other people, they don't know what I know, right? And I'm sitting there saying, listen, I'm the one telling you the truth. Like when I went into that court in front of all you people and told them there was a fraud at the count, and this is how they do it. They're like, it's like an illusion, right? And that's exactly what's going on, right? People are being lied to. Don't forget, I am on 412 at 9 o'clock, so I've got 3 minutes to go. I hope that everyone, let me stop sharing that. I hope everyone has enjoyed the show. I don't mean it to be a downer. I just want people to understand where I come from, right? I'm seeing this stuff. And you've got Northerners driving into London, right? They got to pay for digs. They got to do this. They got to do that, right? I ain't got a problem with Northerners coming into London and earning a pound note. But their wages are coming down and down and down, and everyone's struggling because of what these people are doing and what organised criminals are doing in the background, and especially the gang masters. We have always been against that. Don't forget what England has done. So I am now going to go over to the 412 channel. I'm going to shut this down. Don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. Again, if anyone wants some ivermectin, don't forget, I'll put it up on the end here so you can stop the video, look at it. You know what you got to do. Just email me. And what I do is assist the people who watch and help with this channel. That's it, right? I am literally going to hit the button now and say good night, God bless. Don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. Big up England. Keep pushing for England, and we'll get there. That's it.